Hey everyone, this is a stock talk for July 15th. Received all your comments in the last video and I'll tackle those comments throughout this video. In the meantime, feel free to hit the subscribe button if you enjoy this content. Helps me out a lot and you get to get some notifications on when I post a video. So especially if you find this helpful, please hit the subscribe button. If you don't, it's perfectly fine as well. So S&P 500 daily time frame shows us today we made another higher high. So when you look at this pattern, technically there is nothing troublesome that is looming. However, we have to emphasize this point in which that when we get overly stretched over the 20 period moving average, we can move lower in the following few days as we have done here. So we're a little bit overextended over the 20. Can we get more overextended? The answer is yes, but we would not be surprised if we have a normal garden variety small retracement back towards the 20 period moving average before that next push higher. For what it's worth, the technical pattern continues to remain bullish, and that is the trend until we see the trend flip. So if we get towards the 20 with something like this, then there's really not that much trouble looming in at least going into this week or next week. So we'll have to take this day by day again, but if you look at today, today is not a reversal sign. So follow the trend continues to be bullish and higher. All right, so that's the S&P 500. Let's take a look at TVIX or volatility to see what we can get here. So TVIX, as you can see, continuously makes lower highs and lower lows. If you look at this large pattern, and this stretches all the way back to almost the start of February of this year, you can make this case. So when you're looking at a technical pattern, you can say that, well, lower highs means lower lows means that ticker is probably going to be moving lower. And that is the case. So when we look at these lower highs, it's evident on the larger time scale, right? So even on these bounces, we have lower highs. But you can see even on the shorter term, we have lower highs. So regardless of what we can see, this continues to be on a downtrend. We made a lower low today, as you can see as well. So zooming back in, these are your lower lows. And now you can see in the near term, we continue to have lower lows, though this shows a downtrend. Now, can we have a bounce in the next few days? Yeah, we certainly can. So what does a bounce mean? It can be something like this, in which we get closer to the 20 period moving average, which should act as resistance, right? So for what it's worth right now, this is still on a downtrend until we see a different sign. Volatility is decreasing, which corresponds to markets making all-time highs, and that makes sense. With crude oil on Friday, we established one point, which was that we made a higher high, and now you can see that, and this is recently we made a higher high, but we can see that right now we can come down and retest the moving averages. Today we saw some follow through with that point. That moving average support is around $58, so look for that area to access support. If that area doesn't hold, look towards the next moving average, around 56.70 to hold as support. So those are the two main price points I would be looking at. And if we look at the longer time span, we know that it's not unusual for crude oil to whip and flip and move back and forth. Even on a bullish stance for crude oil in the medium term, you can see that we have these whips and dips. So here, same thing, whips and dips, right? As we can see in the past, this is what we are seeing here for crude oil as well. So look for that area to act as support, and then your resistance. Well, I think resistance now, if we move higher, that resistance will be around $61. You can see that we got rejection off of the previous support, which acted as a resistance here, but the trend short term seems to be going lower, and that's where we have to put it for crude oil. With natural gas on Friday, I pointed out how on the Friday's candle, so this was Friday's candle. Here are your moving averages. Here's the blue line, the 50 period. Here's the light blue line, or the 20 period. Here was Friday's close. It looked pretty bullish, but I said commodities can be tricky going into a weekend, because what happens is that everyone looks at the technical pattern going into a weekend, and it can flip and change very quickly by next week. So even though we got and what looks like a pretty bullish move, you can see today we closed below the 50 period. So here's the deal with natural gas. Natural gas actually, like I pointed out to members in our group, still has a higher low. So if you look at this, this is still a higher low. This still can result in a bullish chart pattern. What I ideally like to see is us holding over the 20 period moving average. And if we can do that, we still have the ability to push towards 2.5711. So natural gas, it still has the ability to push up there. The big question is if we can do that. Even with this candle that was formed on today, I think we still have a chance of getting up there. Gold futures continues to consolidate, and this is a pattern that has not changed for the past few weeks. So after a pretty nice and decent up move, we see consolidation above the 20 period moving average as it's sloping higher on the daily time frame. So that's what we're watching. This is a normal bullish chart pattern, so it should play out to the upside, but we don't see it playing out right now. Well, why is that? It's probably because we had this lengthy run, and crude oil has to consolidate in that run before a next possible push higher. So that not crude oil, for gold. That's what gold is doing right now. So let's take a look at your comments. Start with you. Have a good weekend. Yeah, hopefully you had a great weekend as well. Steve, you rock. Thanks for making this video. Thank you, Steve. Giants, Rico, good to see you here. Yeah. So a lot of you are some old faces here. Not old, you're not old, but like I see a lot of you coming back, which is great now that I have some more consistent videos. So glad to see it, but I like to see your new faces as well. So there's some new faces here as well. Maybe you've watched a lot of times, but that's great. Brooke, thank you. Eric, melt up to 320. So I think you're referring to SPY 320. Interesting comment, because in one of my past videos, and this was done last week, I think maybe on a Monday, I gave a scenario in which we might get a melt up towards SPY 320. Maybe we will get that melt up, but that's too early to say right now. The reason here is that we're in that general vicinity of SPY 300, and we have earnings coming up, which in my opinion is like a wild card. So we're not sure, but it could happen. It's not out of the possibility if you think about it. So thanks, Eric. Again, we'll tackle this day by day. So especially the people in our group, get rapid fire updates on my thoughts as the day is progressing. Rocky, always learning. Good to see you back. J&J lawsuits. Will it reverse back up? Your thoughts? Thanks, Kevin. All right, so J&J is Johnson & Johnson. Okay. It's a tricky chart pattern. The reason why it's a tricky chart pattern is you look at this. So this general vicinity should act as support, right? But one can make also the case that we've neared the high in the past 2 years. So this is a 2-year time span. We've neared the high in the past 2 years. So is there any upside? Potentially. There's potentially some more upside for J&J, but I'd like to see us get over the moving averages. So what does that mean? I'd like to see get us over $141 before I can establish stance that, hey, we actually more or less have the trend with us. Right now the trend seems to be lower despite us being at support, so it's a little bit more risky. Let's see if we can go out and see a bigger picture of things. Yeah, so bigger picture looks fine. Actually, for J&J, it's actually established a pattern of we have a few years of up moves. We got a few years of consolidation. It seems to me that we're still consolidating amidst the bad news in these years. It's survived. So in the long term, it looks more stellar. In the short term, we continue to see a little bit of more volatility. So for J&J. So it has the potential to reverse up, I think, in the long term. In the short term, can experience some more downside. All right. Space Ghost, AMD Power. So AMD, whoa. Okay, so AMD is looking pretty darn bullish. So what you're looking here is the 2-year time span once again for AMD, and it's making a new high. So for what it's worth, this is obviously a bullish chart pattern. What I like to see right now is on a weekly time frame for it to do what? What do you guys think? What do y'all think what I'm looking for? A weekly close, right? That's what I'd be looking for. A definitive close, and if we can do that, that would be very positive for AMD, because that would be popping over a resistance in which we could not pop over in the past, and there could be quite a bit of upside for AMD. Now, here's the deal, right? Here's your next resistance if we get there around $40. So while there is potentially some upside, that upside is around 16%. So you got to monitor your risk reward. But overall, getting over this resistance, actually, we've actually done this on a weekly time frame here. Get some follow through. This is on an uptrend, so AMD does have some power with it. All right, looks like good chart pattern. Long on SD. What do you think of Square right here going to earnings? Okay, so let's tackle this comment. And then Rico also replied to the comment, I was in Square from 71 to 79. That's a great idea. Square will push higher, hold through earnings. Rico says hold through earnings. So let's take a look at Square on the daily time frame. So you can see Square is right at its resistance of $82. So that's the resistance area. But again, right now a little bit overextended, so maybe look for this to pull back a little bit. But I would not be surprised if this chart pattern does play out to the upside, like Rico said. Earnings, again, always a wild card. No one really knows what will exactly happen on earnings, but this is on. You can look at this trend; it's up. So look for possibly some little bit more consolidation around this area. But it has a good chance of popping over this resistance. If it does get over this resistance, looking towards really $100 as the next major resistance. So it looks good. You can see that the moving averages are all, with the exception of the 200, most of them are curving higher. So this is a good chart pattern. I like it. Long on SD. And then, of course, Space Ghost, you mentioned AMD with earnings in a week. All right. So tackled all of your tickers. Feel free to post more tickers down below. Happy to take a look at them, point out some support resistance areas or the technical patterns that I see in the short, medium, and long term. And with that, thank you everyone for watching this video. Again, hit that like button and the subscribe button if you want to, or if you enjoyed this video. And I'll see everyone very soon.